What do you think when you hear Metaverse? Gaming, VR, artificial intelligence, a whole new digital ecosystem for the future? Or do you just hear another fad like 3D TVs or Cabbage Patch Kids? While many people think that the Metaverse is years away, the reality is it may be just around the corner. We're going to talk about that right now in the next 10 minutes on UBS Trending. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of UBS Trending. I'm Anthony Pastore. We're talking about the Metaverse today, and I'm here with my colleagues, Michelle Liberty and Kevin Deneen from CIO. Good to see both of you. I love this topic. It's not the first time we've talked about Metaverse within the confines of the UBS office walls, but it's updated. Michelle, when I hear the word Metaverse, I think of something. I think of my VR headset, right? But people think different things. They might think video game 3.0. They might think, other things down the road. They might think, oh, it's never going to last. So define the Metaverse for us. It's more than VR, isn't that right?
It does definitely go beyond VR. And I think, the reason that we can even sit here and talk about it today is because if you think about some of the things that underpin our themes more broadly, technological progress and societal change, we're at a point today where, based on survey data, most US teens are using the internet daily, right? So we now have a consumer that's a lot more comfortable with this technology, and that makes it a little bit more feasible. When it comes to actual definition of Metaverse, though, I feel like our tech expert here should go ahead and let you know.
Yeah, Kevin, you've been writing about the Metaverse for a couple of years now. What do you think it is?
So I think the Metaverse has a couple loose definitions. The one that we landed on is we think of the Metaverse as this deeply immersive experience. And I think that deeply immersive part is really key. And inside of that, we think the Metaverse has to have three kind of key qualities to really differentiate it from just another VR experience, right? I mean, it's great to put on a VR headset and have that experience, but that's sort of discrete. It starts and it ends. We think about the Metaverse really as being synchronous, as being persistent, as being interoperable. And if we think about synchronous, it means that we all have to be able to get on the Metaverse at the same time and engage. It's not like you have one experience, I have another experience, and Michelle has a third experience. We all have this collective experience at the same time. And persistence means it doesn't need to be reset. Mm-hmm. Like it's sort of ongoing. Like think of it as almost like a river of time that just keeps flowing. And that's really different than just the discrete experience of putting on my headset, or my VR headset, doing, having some sort of virtual gaming experience. And interoperable, we do think that there will be not just one metaverse, not the metaverse. We think there will ultimately be a multiverse of metaverses, right? This is getting like, I know, this is getting super science fiction-y.
And
but
very cerebral.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is, like, we don't think that there's just one homogeneous platform. There's probably going to be a few different large platforms, probably somehow split by geographic region, mm-hmm. maybe split by use case, but we don't think it's going to coalesce into this, like the internet is sort of one big platform.
Well, isn't that the greatest example? Because we all thought 30 years ago, we heard the word internet, nobody really even maybe knew what it was, or it was just starting to maybe permeate a little bit here and there. Now you can't go anywhere without literally carrying around in your pocket or your purse because it's on our smartphone. So the internet is everywhere and it's part of our daily lives. I wonder with this, what does Moore's Law say about this?
Yeah, look, I think you're bringing up a really good point. And I think about this. The Metaverse, we've gone from absolute hype to absolute skepticism. And what we know from history is the truth is always somewhere in the middle.
That's right.
So think back to sort of 2003, when you first had a Palm Trio, if anybody remembers those.
I do.
Or you had a Nokia N97. Did anybody, or the Danger Sidekick, did anybody look at those devices with their kludgy hinges and the really just blah interfaces and say, yeah, you know what? In 2023, 7 billion people are going to walk around with essentially a supercomputer in their pocket, and we're going to be so engaged on these platforms that there will be a cottage industry of chiropractors who walk around getting rid of the hump in our necks that we all have.
Constantly doing this to look down.
So what we have to do is not think about today. What
Right.
we have to do is think about something 5 and 10 years from now.
Right.
And that's how we think about the metaverse. We think, Michelle talked about some of the demographic trends, how users are more open to engaging in technology. You mentioned teenagers. I would imagine basically every single person on the planet who has a smartphone is on the internet every day.
Absolutely, because you're constantly plugged in. You can't not be plugged
Right.
in. And it's one of those things where, Michelle, we talked about this, you go out to dinner with friends, somebody says, what was the name of that movie? Everybody whips out their phone. It's not even a second thought. We don't even allow our brains to think about what that potential answer could be. So I guess probably the whole point here is, you're saying it's not a fad. In other words, the metaverse has life. But so let's dig a little deeper then. There's a lot of headlines about companies maybe spending money trying to build a metaverse. Is this going to become a corporate thing versus just, because the internet in the beginning could have been just fun, but now you can't go to work in an office setting or any company at all. Even a fast food restaurant, you got to have the internet to connect to your clients or customers.
Yeah, so as we think about the metaverse, we think the sort of low-hanging fruit is media and entertainment. We don't think it's really that big of a stretch to say that, the American consumer, the developed markets consumer, they'll take a percentage of the time that they engage in media, and that'll happen in the metaverse. So ultimately, we think this is another form of media and entertainment, and that has implications. That has implications directly for the media and entertainment business. But let's also keep in mind that the old saying in advertising is ad dollars follows eyeballs. So if we're all engaging, or if teens and tweens and 20-something, whatever demographic you want to pick, if they're in the metaverse, they're going to be monetized. They're going to be monetized through advertising. They're going to be monetized through subscription. They're going to be monetized through one-off events.
Right.
Just like we've seen in traditional media. So this is sort of dollar shifting from one bucket of consumption to another. But then, to the bigger point of your question, we do see application of the metaverse in things like telehealth, things like education, things like professional meetings, things like professional training.
Yeah.
It's extensions. It's really an extension of what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But in a much richer,
immersive way. And consumer companies are getting in on this as well, because I've seen reports that people are literally buying thousands of dollars worth of digital virtual clothing for their avatars that sit in the metaverse. Consumer companies are smart about this as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you think of those large consumer companies that have these very recognizable brands, they want to go ahead and make sure that they can get that brand in front of you in the metaverse too. I think the key here is that when you actually think about it from the investor perspective, those large consumer companies, they might be able to make a couple sales in the metaverse, but it's going to be a sliver, if anything, of their total revenue profile. So it's really not what's driving those companies yet. But to your point, yes, they're absolutely trying to get involved.
It's just wild to me. Like, I don't know if I'm an old dog. You got to teach me new tricks. I mean, I love technology. I love thinking about the future. This is on another level. So let's just kind of, as we're wrapping up a conversation, go deep into the investment side. If you think about investing in the metaverse today, but even more importantly, 5 to 10 years, as this is one of our new longer term investment themes, what does 5 to 10 years from now look like from the investment landscape?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. And I think what's really important here is to have some perspective. So I think, the question we always get is, like, why do you believe in the metaverse so much, right? And I gave you that example of smartphones, because I think you have to answer this question before you can answer how to invest. And I think if you look at the history of technology, there's 3 laws, loosely defined as laws, that have driven the development of technology. Moore's law, which you mentioned, Keck's law, which a lot of people aren't familiar with, and Metcalfe's law. Moore's law is the idea of semiconductors, right? The idea that the power of a semiconductor doubles every other year or so, or the cost of compute gets cut in half. Keck's law people aren't familiar with, but the internet grows at about 35%, 40% per year.
It's exponential.
Right. And the cost of driving that traffic goes down by that much. And Metcalfe's law talks about the added value of the incremental user. Like, to have a network with 2 or 3 people is kind of interesting, but the value of the network increases as you add users, right? That's where you really see exponential network effects. So we think the metaverse will benefit from all 3 of those laws, right? Like, cheaper computing will enable these rich virtual experiences. Keck's law, this ongoing decline in the cost of moving traffic around, that's going to enable rich immersive services at lower cost to the consumer.
Right.
And then Metcalfe's law will really bring the experience to life and make it valuable, because if I'm in a metaverse, it's kind of cool. But if all my friends are in the metaverse, now that's really
it's an
interesting.
Experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think if you have that perspective, you can sort of have a belief that we'll get there. And in terms of how you invest, we think you have to be barbelled here. We think that you want to have a mix of public market exposure and private market exposure. And in the public markets, it's really about the companies that are building out the infrastructure and some of the large scaled up global platforms with these huge user bases. And in the private markets, there's a number of companies that are making direct investments against this opportunity.
Terrific, Kevin. Thank you. Michelle, take us home. What other investment ideas are you seeing in the space here?
Yeah, I would just say that there's room for the metaverse to bump into our other investment themes as well. I know you already mentioned healthcare, education. I think if we really use our imagination and think further out of what this could look like, something like healthcare and mental health, they're starting to explore these areas. We need to see more proof of concept and better efficacy. We can't make that claim yet. But if you think about someone that maybe has anxiety or PTSD that's maybe triggered by one event, you can essentially practice that event in a more controlled environment to kind of ease yourself back into it. So again, I don't want to make any claims there on efficacy, but I do think it's exciting about what we could potentially do.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And Kevin, I just want to point out again that example that you gave about smartphone usage. There are 8 billion people on the planet, which is a lot, but 7 billion of those people have a smartphone. Think about the pervasiveness of that technology. Maybe there are people out there who said, oh, we saw that coming. I don't think I ever did. So this is another potential technology that maybe 10 years down the road we'll be sitting here again with any luck and saying, see, we told you, 7 billion people are in the metaverse.
We'll do this in the metaverse.
We'll have to do. We might be doing it in the metaverse. I can live in Hawaii like I've always wanted. Thank you guys so much. It's great to see you. It's a great topic. More to come on that. And thank you all for joining us. For more information, visit our Insights website at ubs.com/views. Plus, there's lots of content on social media and most specifically our newly launched Instagram channel, UBS Trending. Take a look at that when you have some time. If you have any questions about what we talked about today or any of our other topics, make sure to reach out to your financial advisor. Until next time, I'm Anthony Pastore. Have a great day, everybody, and remember to keep your eyes on what's trending. We'll see you soon.